Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I wanted to talk about this guy, Joel Webbon, here. I've talked about him a few times on this channel, but he's a Christian nationalist, if you're unfamiliar. About as extreme as they get, honestly. Hang on, let me just feel like I'm not centered. There we are. Let me just give you an idea of who he is, and then we're going to watch this video from him where he appeared on this Cross Politic Rumble channel. It's just, here, let me just give you a taste of the Rumble video we're going to be watching. This is how it starts.
I want to work for a woke company, like super woke.
When I grow up,
I want to be hired based on what I look like,
rather than my skills.
I want to be judged
By my political beliefs.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what we're dealing with. That's Joel Webbon. I mean, that's what he believes in a nutshell. And he wants to merge church and state inextricably. So let me just give you an idea of who he is. Just take a minute or two if you never heard of him, and then we'll get into that video, okay? Yeah, check this out. This is the first video I came across with him in it, and probably the most egregious and crazy.
God appoints some kind of ruler.
This is an ideal world for him.
Who is unapologetically Christian, and he comes in with a sword and says, I'm sorry, but lawlessness and wickedness will not be tolerated.
And wickedness and lawlessness mean anything that's outside of the Ten Commandments, I guess. Well, I don't guess. I mean, that's what it is in his mind. Anything outside the Ten Commandments. And wickedness would, include being gay or swearing or whatever. Forbidden. Getting drunk, forbidden.
Anymore.
So a guy comes in with a sword and he's going to force people not to do that anymore. A dictator, if you will.
With a sword and says, I'm sorry, but lawlessness and wickedness will not be tolerated anymore. And he doesn't force conversions, just for the record, because that's another one of the objections.
That is an objection I have, absolutely. Yeah, that's disturbing. I don't want anybody to force conversion on anybody else.
It's just ill-founded.
Ill-founded. That makes me feel better, okay?
He doesn't go around forcing conversions, but instead what he does is he forces external morality.
Now, that doesn't make me feel better at all. That's exactly what I didn't want. That exact thing that you're saying right now. What? He wants to force external morality. That means he's going to force people not to swear, not to get drunk, not to smoke weed, not to, I don't know. You have to go to church on Sundays. That's mandatory, and Wednesdays preferably. You have to spend a certain amount of time in prayer every day, and it'll be mandatory, and it'll be checked by police. That's his idea of a perfect world. You think I'm being hyperbolic? Just wait. Just wait. I'll prove it to you. Okay, so this guy's going to force external morality, quote unquote.
But instead, what he does is he forces external morality. He doesn't force a change of heart. Only the gospel can do that.
Okay, I didn't think the guy could force a change of heart. Did he think that was my objection?
But what a king can do is he can say, whether you're regenerate or not, you're going to pretend. You're at least going to pretend to be Christian. They're not free thinkers. They're not courageous.
Talking about men.
They're not intelligent. They're men, and men must be governed.
What a psychotic thing to say. It's just a weird thing to say. He says men must be governed because women don't need to be governed because they're governed by the man in this equation, and children are governed by the wife. This is so crazy, dude.
And if they must...
I wonder what happens, if somebody falls outside of, the patriarchal, get married to a man and have children. I wonder what happens to those people. Say a woman, her husband dies, and she's 35 years old, and everybody's already married. They got married at 18, so now she can't get remarried. What about her? She's not allowed to have a bank account. She's not allowed to buy a house or operate in society to any degree. Not allowed to vote. I'll prove that again in just a minute. He doesn't seem to care about those outlying cases. He wants to force people to live inside of his bubble. And if they don't, I guess he wants them to die? Dollar Store Matt Walsh, says Jasse. Yeah, absolutely. Dollar Store Matt Walsh. That's a good one. It's a good point. Also, welcome, Naricol. Thank you for coming. And everybody else, thanks for coming, guys. Okay, let's continue here.
Men, and men must be governed. And if they must be governed, then our prayer as Christians that they would be governed in the right direction, at least, for the good of the church.
For the good of the church. Okay. Anyway, so that should give you an idea of who he is. This is a good face. I like this face. Just listen to this next one from him. He lays it out pretty succinctly. These are all, by the way, mid-2024, like April, May, June, that vicinity.
We are going to behave as a Christian people. And what does that mean? It means we're going to ban pornography. It means we are going to ban no-fault divorce. It means we are going to utterly abolish abortion, including in vitro, including the hormonal birth control pill.
Mm-hmm. The hormonal birth control pill is not abortion. The hormonal birth control pill is just preventing pregnancy. I guess he doesn't want to prevent pregnancy anymore. Even if you have 19 children, you don't want to prevent pregnancy? This is insane.
Every single one of its forms, not just the Planned Parenthood clinic in Texas, but we're going to go down to the local CVS and we're going to start knocking those pills off the shelf. No more human sacrifice.
Yeah, so no more human sacrifice. Oh my God, dude. What he's describing here, knocking the pills off the shelf and stuff, it's a tactic right out of Mussolini's political party, the fascist party. They used to do that kind of thing. I mean, not birth control pills specifically, necessarily. I'm not even sure. I don't know if they even... Yeah, I mean, birth control existed at the time, I think. But anyway, Mussolini kind of created those... Well, he didn't create the tactic of, like, being violent, but he structured it. He organized it and turned it into a legitimate political party and named it fascism. That's what he's doing, right? This is like the definition of fascism.
Off the shelf, no more human sacrifice. So a civil magistrate can do that.
Yeah,
he can and should do that.
Absolutely insane. Now, one more clip from this guy. If you don't know who he is, I just want to go into this video with open eyes, okay? Just going to listen to a second or two here.
Let's say you can wave your Christian nationalist wand. We wake up tomorrow in a Christian nation.
Not for nothing. I don't think he'd be waving any wand if he was a Christian nationalist. I mean, he is a Christian nationalist because magic is forbidden in his ideal world, right?
Christian nationalist nation as you're describing, all right? There's a lot of fears that people have. Here's one of them. Will women have the right to vote tomorrow if you wave that magic Christian wand?
You see this guy, like, smiling.
No.
Okay, why not? I want to get into why not. Yeah, that's great.
Because
there's a kid screaming in the background. God.
Because if we had a Christian nation tomorrow and women did have the right to vote, we would not have a Christian nation within 50 years.
Okay, elaborate a little bit on that.
I mean, it's pretty clear. He just doesn't want women to vote because they think with their hearts rather than their heads in his mind, I guess. Anyway, you have an idea of who he is. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely nuts. Now, I want to watch this video with him. We're going to just, like, jump forward a little bit here since we've seen the opener. Let's see. Where does his part start? Yeah, roughly right here, I think. Also, while we listen to this, I'm going to play a game. It should just be in the background. Won't bother you too much. You never played before. It'll be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I've heard people's opinions on how I can make my channel better, and I have implemented those changes. People said that I should make the video bigger and the game smaller. Well, there you go. I did it. Hopefully you like it. I spent all day today, literally all day, working on layouts and creating virtual inputs and all kinds of crazy stuff for my streaming stuff. So anyway, all right, let's, oh yeah, I can also reverse them if I want. Reverse. That's pretty cool, right? Anyway, all right, let's give this a listen here.
F. Shaver's he's like the ninja, I don't know what do we call the sensei?
Yeah.
Of law and policy.
The topic is going to be on how words are to be used. And so how they're using words to reshape reality.
Man.
So and he's a master with words too. So it's going to be phenomenal.
Man, he is. We're so grateful to have back with us our friend, our brother, Joel Webbon. Pastor Webbon is the president in the north side of Austin, Texas. He's the husband of Megan, father of Olive, Ruth, Eleanor, and Franklin. It's so good to have you back with us, Joel. How's it going?
It's going great. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, man. I think we've this is like the second time we talked to you maybe in a couple months.
Yeah, it is. It's great. All I have to do is just keep upsetting people, and I get to hang out with my friends.
Are you doing this on purpose? Are you trying to?
Oh, of course he is. Of course he's upsetting people on purpose. Yes, absolutely. He's trying to get under people's skin so that he gets more attention. It's weird. Like, I've seen this from a whole bunch of different people lately, but they'll say absolutely psychotic stuff so that they get attention and, spread their ideas further. And unfortunately, we have to talk about these people and their ideas because their ideas are not just like provocative, but they're spreading. They're going to different, what's the term I'm looking for here? They're making their way into politics by turning into like legislation and stuff. That's why we have to cover this.
Got with us on purpose like this?
Yeah, just to see you guys. Yeah.
He's like, what do I got to do? I got Allie Beth Stuckey mad at me. I got the G3 guy.
Yeah, I don't know who Allie Beth Stuckey is.
Mad at me. Come on.
But Allie's not mad at you, is she?
No.
Like, I know who Allie Beth Stuckey is. I just don't know anything about their problems. She's like a conservative influencer, and I think she got famous, for calling out the health at every size movement and saying that people are fat and they need to accept that they're fat and blah, 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 you know.
I got Allie Beth Stuckey mad at me. I got the G3 guys mad at me. Come on.
But Allie's not mad at you, is she?
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a relationship with her, but I think she just has some misunderstandings about the biblical view of patriarchy. She's under the impression, I think, that some of the guys in the page application on feminine attributes. So I think.
Wait, there was a cut there. That's weird.
I think teaching the good is going to be centered on being submissive to husbands and lovers of children. And to kind of contrast that, I don't think that you should have, even with a non-mixed crowd, a women's only context. I don't think that we need to create women only context with a woman teacher doing a 17-week course on doctrine of God. I think that primarily women will learn that, but they'll learn it right beside.
Holy Christ, dude, I'm getting bodied by these guys. I'll come back to this later on. Sorry.
To create women-only context with a woman teacher doing a 17-week course on doctrine of God. I think that primarily women will learn that, but they'll learn it right beside their husbands on the Lord's Day from the biblically qualified male pastors. And I think that position has upset a lot of people, but I think it's a reasonable position that we find throughout church history and more importantly in the Bible.
Okay.
Man.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. Yeah, so this whole women should be subservient to men and silent and all of that. Jesus didn't really teach any of that stuff. If we're looking at the New Testament, none of the ideas that he espoused just now really holds any water biblically. There are a few verses that these people like refer back to justify putting women in a subservient position, but the one that they use consistently is 2 Timothy 2:12, or is it 1 Timothy 2:12? I always get it mixed up. I think it's 1 Timothy 2:12. Yeah. I do not permit a woman to teach or have authority over a man. She must be silent. Now, Paul is purported to have written this. And as it happens, that specific verse was added later. We know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Paul did not write that verse. If he wrote the whole book, it wasn't, he didn't write that verse. And we know that because of early manuscripts that we have and the verses that they miss and things like that. Hang on, there's a siren outside. I'm sorry, it's super loud. Anyway, when Christianity was young, the literacy rate was about 10%. 90% of the world was incapable of reading or writing. They were not ubiquitous. And usually it was like 1 or 2 people in a congregation that was capable of reading. So, reading and writing. So they'd get that guy to copy down manuscripts that passed through the area. Like somebody would be in a neighboring church and they'd say, hey, we just got this letter from somebody or whatever. And they'd say, oh, bring it over and we'll have our guy copy this down. So that's what they did. And that happened. It worked that way for like generations until people started adding different verses to stuff. They added information. Like one church didn't like the fact that women were allowed to participate in whatever, in teaching or preaching or whatever. So they put that verse in there after the fact. Women shall not teach, they'll be silent. Anyway, his justification for hating the idea of women teaching is paper thin and really betrays his own interests and ideals and goals. If he went with what Jesus taught, which is what's supposed to be the basis of Christianity, right? He wouldn't have a problem with women being involved because Jesus didn't kick women out or whatever. He uniquely spoke to women that he wasn't, that weren't supposed to be communicated with effectively, like the Samaritan, for example. He involved them in his ministry. They sat with him when he taught and all of that other stuff. Jesus didn't draw any boundaries that way. But this guy decides to go with the verses that back up what he already believes and damn the historical evidence that we have to show that these verses don't actually belong in the Bible. Just forget it. Throw it all out. Anyway, keep listening here. Hang on. Both Timothy wasn't written by Paul. They're full of anachronism. They were written well after Paul's death. I know that 13 books were claimed to, all right, let me rephrase that. I know that 13 books are claimed to have been written by Paul, but it was only 7 of them, I think, actually. I don't remember which ones are which. But yeah, it would not surprise me to find out that Timothy was one of them. 1st and 2nd Timothy or whatever were some that were just like falsified. Anyway, the point is that Paul did not write those verses. That's the idea here. Anyway, let's keep listening.
Qualified male pastors. And I think that position has upset a lot of people, but I think it's a reasonable position that we find throughout church history and more importantly in the Bible.
Okay.
Yeah, he finds it in the Bible, right? Okay.
Man.
Hold on. Before we even, because last time, the reason we're having you back on so soon is because last time we were supposed to talk about your book, Fight by Flight.
Don't let him get you off.
Does not get off topic here. There you go. Raise that book up. That's what I'm talking about. And so this is interesting, Joel. So I'm on the internet, and I know we didn't talk about your book last time, but the conversation was so good. And it's like, okay. But I'm on the internet, and the next thing I know, I look up, and there's this guy out in Massachusetts who has a video talking about you. And I'm thinking to myself, what has happened that people who believe in exegeting the scripture,
exegesis or exegetical means explanatory, I believe. So I'm not sure like how he's using this in this context, but all right. So if you're doing like exegetical preaching, for example, you're explaining the Bible, I guess.
Talking about you, and I'm thinking to myself, what has happened that people who believe in exegeting the scripture, working through the Bible, the Lord's Day.
Like, I feel like I don't fully understand this word, like the context behind it. Let me see. Is I feel like they're using it in another way other than just like explaining. So here's the definition: critical explanation or interpretation of a text, especially of scripture. Okay, so it's just interpreting what they believe the Bible to mean. Got it.
and not like some sort of performance or show stuff like that. What happened? What has Joel done that has made Reform guys all of a sudden pick their topic around you? Like, what have you done where they interrupt the exegesis of their text to drop in this clip?
Movement to popularize the insane notion that Christians should only live in red states and are under some sort of divine imperative.
I guess this is like what Joel has espoused. Okay.
To flee blue states, to flee secular and hostile cities, to retreat to small towns in Texas. I'm glad we have a visitor from Texas with us today. And the purpose of this is in order to avoid their tax dollars going to governments that do wicked things. I guess they've forgotten about what Jesus said about paying taxes to Caesar. Caesar.
Wow, that is a sick burn, dude. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Nice. I don't know who this guy is, but he's absolutely on point.
Wasn't exactly a Christian prince. So when I say, where is the Spirit today? What I'm observing is something more like this. Lord, I will live anywhere you want me to live. Lord, send me anywhere and preach the gospel. I will preach the gospel anywhere you want me to preach, as long as there's a Republican mayor.
Dude, I love it. This guy is on point.
This is a doctrine of demons.
A doctrine of demons.
Or as I put in my notes, are you kidding me? That is
the world. You teach doctrines of demons now?
Apparently, yeah. Yeah, so one correction would be, he lives not in Massachusetts, but in Manhattan.
I'm sorry,
so he's in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I live in Manhattan too. I'm not sure what that has to do with anything.
But yeah, we actually had kind of a debate that was scheduled. It wasn't going to be like a debate in person, but the Daily Wire was going to have Andy Woodard and myself representing two different positions. But it didn't happen because a certain someone who was heading it up with the Daily Wire ended up seeking employment elsewhere. I'll just leave it there. But anyways, all that.
Wait, don't leave it there. Give me more. You can't just say that and like walk away.
Because a certain someone who was heading it up with the Daily Wire ended up seeking employment elsewhere. I'll just leave it there. But anyways, all that said, it got moved to the back burner. Maybe something will happen or come out of it. But I think part of the people haven't read the book. But what they saw was who loves the Lord.
Dude, why are there so many cuts in this? Like, I'm just playing it straight from Rumble. Is it just really choppy, like just a bad live stream or something?
And does a lot of great stuff, but he's for the most part a political pundit, and so he is a brother, he is a Christian, and I think he does great stuff. And so I was honored that he would have me on the show to talk about the book. This is something that Steve has talked about a lot, why conservatives and Christians need to leave, blue states and move to red states as a political strategy. So Steve is having me on the show.
Oh, this is Steve Deace. Okay, Steve Deace. Yes. Oh my God. I have a bunch of stuff from Steve Deace. That guy is absolutely insane. Oh my God. And it's so funny too. Oh, I remember watching this one clip for the first time. It just like blew me away, dude. Hang on. Oh, wait, I gotta find this one clip I know about him. 1 second. Yeah, oh my God, this is the one. Okay. Listen to this clip from Steve Deace. It is so funny.
We all, I think, understand. And if you don't worry. I'm going to keep leaning on you until
lean on me.
You get there. We all, I think, by now understand the old model of going to a happy-go-lucky church, watching Fox News all week long in between, and then being the silent majority and voting for the red wave to save us is a relic of a bygone era and won't cut it.
Okay. Just dead silence here. What?
It doesn't matter which rhino you decide to vote for Congress. They're teabagging your kids at the public library down the street.
Holy Christ, dude!
Street with drag queens. We're beyond this. No.
Oh my God, that blew me away the first time I heard that. Oh, that was so funny. They're doing what? How did he come to this conclusion? Seriously. God, he lives in another universe.
We're beyond it. As I said last hour, At this point, with very limited exceptions, elections in America are total depravity versus managed decay.
Yeah, okay, that's the end of it. Wow, dude. This guy is absolutely absurd on every level. Hey, let's see if I got another good one from him. Let's see. This one is that last one is really funny, dude. I think that's hilarious. This one is less funny and more disturbing, but oh, dude, I love everything about that video. It's so ridiculous.
Can you watch a program without literally live sporting event, news show, whether we're covering them, talking about them, promoting them? Can you listen to a podcast that doesn't include some reference to drag queens today?
Yes. What are you talking about? The only place I ever hear about drag queens is from this poor fool and other poor fools like him. I don't know, like, where he's getting his news or what he's watching or whatever, that he can't escape drag queens. But, like, what the hell is happening in this dude's life? Jesus Christ.
Is it possible? Anywhere, pro or con?
Yes. And honestly, it was possible at the time this video came out, too. This video came out, let's see, mid-March 2023. So it's just like a year ago or so. A little more now. Last year, were you watching sporting events and all they did was talk about, like, trans people? Or, I'm sorry, not even trans people, drag queens. It's not even trans people. Holy shit. It's just dead silence again.
I mean,
Dude loves giving us... Oops, sorry. Dude loves giving us dead silence.
As it gets. Even when RuPaul is saying, well, we're the ones that come in and groom the kids. That's what he means.
Okay, he was being facetious, I'm sure. I don't know anything about RuPaul. Is RuPaul trans? I'm not sure. I've only ever really heard the name. I know very little about the person. I know it's a TV show. Something. Anyway.
We're the ones that come in and groom the kids. Pedo groomers should be executed, by the way.
Yeah, so anyway, dude is absolutely nuts. I guess Joel Webbon went on Steve Deace's show or whatever. Interesting.
Going to oblige what he wants to talk about. And the primary thing that Steve and I talked about when I came on the show was political strategy. Talk about all of the scripture and the biblical reasons that the lion's share of the book talks about the biblical commandments to men as fathers, as sons, as husbands, as grandfathers, as church members, and talks about how at the end of the day, obedience is better than sacrifice. And so we can't just say, I'm living on mission, but forego some of the clear commandments in scripture. And not in every case, but in some cases, geographically moving may better be more conducive to a man's practical obedience to the clear commandments in scripture than him remaining in a place that's hostile to the gospel and has wicked policies that have economic effects that cause...
Okay, interesting. Look, there's no city or state or anything in the United States anywhere that is actively hostile to the gospel. You do whatever you want as a Christian, except force me to be Christian. That's what the problem is here. He wants to force others to follow his religious beliefs or whatever. He can't just believe it. He needs you to believe it too. I think Christopher Hitchens said that a while back. And I guess that's just like being hostile to the gospel. Right. Okay.
Cause it to be more challenging to obey Christ. So there's a lot of different things in the book, but when I go on a Steve Deace show and we're talking about politics, that's the thing that we talk about, what Steve had me on to talk about, the political strategy. And these guys don't like political strategy.
So, okay, go ahead, Pastor.
Doctrine of demons.
Just out of all the things that call doctrine of demons, I don't want to. We can stay here. We can hash.
If this had been a founders movie clip,
yeah,
they'd all be canceled.
right. Ask Owen. So there's a lot to talk about here. But I really want to talk about your book. I really want to try and dig into it a little bit because.
How do you actually fight by fleeing?
Yeah. So my concern is, I pastored in California for a few years, and my concern is that I think there's a lot of Christians who really love the Lord and want to make a difference. They want to be faithful and fight, be a missionary, be on mission, or it's sin, compromise, surrender, quit, fail. And so what I'm trying to argue is that I really do believe that there's a way of leaving that's not leaving the fight. It's leaving the geographic area.
Dude, like, what the hell is he talking about? Is he saying that, like, his whole book is about leaving blue states and cities and moving to red states and cities?
But it's actually a way of fighting. And so I use different texts. One text that I use is the prodigal son, that, it's a profound parable where,
Oh, so he's just like fabricating justification when in fact Jesus did say you're supposed to pay Caesar's things to Caesar or whatever, right?
The son, he's in a far off, distant land, and no one gave him anything. The text explicitly says that. No one gave him anything. The very next line in the text is, he came to his senses. Imagine that. So one of the worst things that could have happened for this young, rebellious man is if a member of the father's house had sought him out with a misguided sense of compassion and given him. Next thing is he begins to think about how even the lowest members of his father's house, the servants, they still have more than enough. And so he thinks, I need to go back to the Father. I need to repent. I need to return. And so part of what I'm arguing at a political strategy, at a fight by flight level, is I'm saying that I really think that in some sense, the salt of the earth often are propping up the very policies that they're trying to fight against. What would happen in a state like California if...
Dude, I'm trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be going here. Like, I am so lost. That's really frustrating about, like, the gold saucer. It's really, really annoying. Where the hell am I supposed to be right now? I want to get here, but I can't get here. Paint the town red. Like, what is this? Why doesn't it just give me more information? What am I looking at? It says I can't go to the last... What am I supposed to... No, I can't go to the last place. I'm just, like, so confused. Anyway, sorry. So he's saying that you shouldn't live in blue cities, and he wants to see those blue cities or states completely collapse. Right?
That in some sense, the salt of the earth often are propping up the very policies that they're trying to fight against. What would happen in a state like California if every conservative and every Christian just said, that's enough? That's enough. We're going to leave. And I think some people, by their mere presence, this isn't everyone, missionaries are a legitimate category. But for the average Christian,
Well, so he's trying to create a brand new city-state or whatever that is, or a new, what's the term I'm looking for here? He's trying to create a new territory that Christians live in and that others don't live in. He wants to create that territory. Okay. I mean, it seems to me like what he's doing, he's trying to start a new civil war, and he's building these states up, building up the economies and stuff, right?
That's enough. We're going to leave. And I think some people, by their mere presence, this isn't everyone, missionaries are a legitimate category. But for the average Christian, 16 million professing Christians out of 42 million total population in California, I don't think that the average professing Christian meets the mission dollars. I think their presence is to fight, but often it ends up funding more than it's actually fighting. And so
he says 16 million Christians in California, and those Christians are all in California because they're trying to be missionaries for the California people or whatever. Except that Christians are not like a monolith. They have all kinds of different beliefs. And honestly, this guy's beliefs are in a serious minority. I know that it seems like he isn't in a minority because he has like so much political power. Like his movement, the evangelical movement, has so much political power. He is actually in a minority, though, in all seriousness. I think the evangelical movement only accounts for like 15% of the adult voting population or whatever. somewhere in there, 15%. That's almost nothing. Okay, if atheists and secular Christians who aren't like extreme nutcases like formed a coalition, they would outnumber them vastly. But evangelicals will do absolutely anything to accomplish their goals. They're fanatics. Whatever it takes, they're willing to do. The ends justify the means. And I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to take that step and like do literally whatever it takes to get my goals accomplished, like advocating for, you know, death of certain people or lying about certain groups of people simply to convince society that I'm right. Even if it's like, if it's not true, I don't think that you're justified in spreading it. So anyway, yeah, let's keep listening to what he says here. It feels like he's more powerful than he actually is. I'm sorry. It feels like he's bigger, this group. It feels like it's bigger than it actually is. It's not. It's just they hold a lot of political sway, is all.
You think of 6 million votes for Trump in 2020. Was it close? No, 12 million for Biden. But in the Electoral College, Biden actually only won, despite the popular vote and despite all the shenanigans with the electoral.
I prefer shenaniganery. Also, yeah, the point he's making here, the Electoral College is why Trump had such a close chance of winning in the first place. Yeah, Republican presidential candidates have not won the popular vote in like 30 years or something like that. Bush lost the popular vote both times, I believe. And then John McCain and Mitt Romney lost the popular vote against Obama. Trump lost the popular vote against Hillary. And then he lost the popular vote against Biden by like a lot. Multiple percentage points. But here we sit worrying that Trump might take the presidency again. Why? Because it's rigged against democracy. This, like, the Electoral College is not a democratic system. Not really. I guess technically it might be, but it's, moving us further away from a pure democracy is the point. Anyway, I guess this dude is saying that we need to work on the Electoral College, or he's saying he wants to fight to gain the Electoral College for Republicans and forget the popular vote. Nobody cares about it, right?
Electoral College, he won by different metrics, but arguably.
Dude, why am I like so close to this thing? This is driving me nuts.
Biden actually only won, despite the popular vote and despite all the shenanigans with the Electoral College. He won by different metrics, but arguably everybody would agree by less than 80,000 votes in a few swing states.
Yeah. Trump did lose by about 80,000 votes in a few swing states. That's absolutely true. That is so disturbing.
3 or 4 respectively. And so you think 6 million votes down the toilet. I was one of them. I left in December after the election. But 6 million votes that aren't ultimately going to do anything. You spread that out, and all of a sudden, with all the talk about loving our neighbors, I'm thinking about 13 service member neighbors, in Afghanistan that might have. That's the political.
Oh my God, dude. Is he really talking about this right now? 13 service members. This is ridiculous, okay? Do you know how many people died in Afghanistan over the past, 30 years? How many Middle East deaths, right? How many U.S. Military deaths in Middle East? Let's see. Post 9/11, 7,000 U.S. troops died in the Middle East. 7,000, okay? Every life is important. Every single life. Life is the most valuable and important thing in the universe, in my opinion. I don't want to lose another single life, but pulling out of Afghanistan, leaving, and losing 13 people on the way out the door, as opposed to staying and losing thousands more, it's a pretty clear-cut choice, isn't it? I don't think anybody would struggle with that. This is purely propaganda. He's just twisting this situation in such a way that he can make Biden look bad when Biden got us out of a 30-year-long war or whatever it is. And, like, just what is wrong with this guy? Why is he like this? How did this happen?
Argument, but that's not the primary or only argument in the book.
So, okay. You say that they're propping up. I was thinking about this in part of your book. You said that most of the Christians that are there will be propping up California. Let's say that you decide to leave California, and a lot of Christians decide to leave California. Isn't there an argument to be said that if you leave with the same sort of attitude that you were staying there with, all you have done is allow California to become as powerful as it can be, almost like finding a bear in the woods and not taking care of the bear. It's going to find its way out into other areas. And
okay, I'm not following this analogy, but all right, go on.
Talking about the documentary for on the SBC. And it was the question at the time was, do we leave the SBC or do we engage?
Southern Baptist Convention, is that what that is? I think it was not extreme enough for them.
And fight in the SBC. And part of my response to them was, listen, if you're going to leave the SBC, maim it if you can. Right? Don't leave the thing with all that money and all that power and all that ability to have impact wherever you decide to go to. And then you don't have any ability or any say-so in what it does. And so,
yeah, so there's a few differences, though.
By the by, T. King, Owen, have you talked about the Supreme Court ruling? I've talked about Chevron, but that's not. That's probably not the one you're talking about. You're probably talking about the immunity case. No, I haven't. There are some things that I am going to talk about it, but I'm just going to wait because some things are really discouraging and I don't want to get people down. I want people to have encouragement and have a laugh while they're here too, maybe. Like listening to Steve Deace say the crazy stuff he says, for example. So I'm going to space out the bad news a little bit. And I don't want people to come here and think every time they come here, they're going to be down when they leave, Anyway. Yeah, Trump got immunity basically from the Supreme Court. They decided that anything that Trump did is justified and he's safe from prosecution. So I'll talk about it when there's more information and I'll find an upside to it. And where the hell am I going right now? I'm so lost. What is happening right now? And why is this so it's like a puzzle just trying to figure out what to do next. What the hell? Anyway, let's keep listening. Oh yeah, Laura Harvey, thank you for being a member, by the way. I appreciate that. Right, let's continue.
The SBC doesn't collect money from the local churches at the end of a gun, but California does.
Well, some would say.
So you can.
Oh my God, is he like a sovereign citizen, libertarian nutcase or something? Is that what this is?
Stay in the SBC, right. And you can legitimately give, I think, less than $200 and pastor a mega church of 10,000 people and give less than $200 annually and still be a legitimate SBC member, get to write a little bit of fund.
Dude, I feel like it's just seriously, it's like a maze trying to find my way through here. What the hell am I supposed to do now? I can't go anywhere. What is this? This is so incredibly frustrating.
That's not the case at a political tax level.
So then
it's not the same.
So, well, okay, but my point is that if you leave it and it still has that kind of power, isn't it a problem? And the other side of the question is, okay, yeah, why don't you answer that part first, Joel? If you leave it and it still has all that power and authority, isn't there still a problem because it's not Maine?
Well, part of my argument is that it doesn't have all that power because part of the source of that power is money and people. So there's a few different levels here. One,
okay, California is not going to lose 16 million people even over the course of a year. He's saying 16 million Christians in California are going to leave and be radicalized and go completely nuts. That's not happening. Like I said, only a small percentage of the adult voting population, or even the Christian population, is like him. A very small subset, 15% of the voting population. At best, he might be able to get like 20 to 25% of the Christian population if he had like all the power in the world. And even then, a lot of those people are like destitute. How do you think they're going to move? He underestimates how impoverished people are, I think. I lived in West Virginia for like decades because I didn't have the money to move. Or the credit. You try renting an apartment in a different city. Good luck. Anyway, it's just not happening. He can live in this fantasy as long as he wants. It's just not going to happen, period. Even if people wanted it to.
One is the level of money, the monetary issue of taxes. But then there's also just the issue of, I think, a couple seats. Can you guys verify that?
Dude, this is so weird. Why does it keep cutting out?
I don't know if it's one or two, but as a population shifts from one state to the other, like I'd like to see Idaho have more state representatives. I'd like to see more political power. So we're not just talking about the state, but we're also talking at the federal level. So there's voting power, there's tax dollars, there's all these different things. And again, that's not the private, that's the thing that I keep talking about because that's the thing that people want to talk about because it's the thing that upsets people. But that's not the primary argument. The primary argument is I think that we're going to, I'm not saying we're here at this point. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio today. But it seems as though there's a trajectory where you can lose your kids if they all of a sudden start identifying as the opposite gender and you're not affirming that. That is a real possibility. There's a bill right now. We just had a speech that was going viral around the internet where he said, as soon as I finish my term, I'm leaving. And he literally said, if you love your kids, leave the state. I always argued stay and fight.
Okay, I don't know who he's talking about here. But he's saying that he thinks that, like, you're going to be, arrested if you don't, quote unquote, affirm people's gender identity or something? Like, no. You can be a scumbag to your heart's content. There's no law against being a scumbag, nor will there ever be.
Stay and fight. That's not my argument anymore. You should leave. So here's my point. California is not equivalent to the Sudan.
Right.
But it could be eventually. And all...
What?
All I'm saying is I think that in America, that we've never had to think this way. But I think we're going to have to start thinking about states in our nation the way that we've thought about global missions, right? So when you think, hey, somebody wants to go to Pakistan, somebody wants to go to the Sudan.
Oh, I see. So he thinks that California is going to collapse because it's so bad at managing things and taking money from people? Okay. Well, I mean, it's been 200-something years, hasn't it? And it's still going strong.
Like they feel called. Well, we wouldn't just send anybody. We would say, all right, that's a tough spot. That there's extreme hostility towards Christianity. There's some biblical criteria we need to consider. Let's talk with your elders. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's weigh these with our words. So everybody is a missionary. They're called to do missionary, capital M, missionary proper. In the same way, every man should be a pastor in his home, but not every man is an ordained minister on the Lord's Day in the local church.
Okay, I feel like I'm missing half of what he's saying because it's so confusing. What is his point here? Is there like an overarching point?
Not every man is administering the sacraments. Not every man is publicly preaching the word. And so we understand that when we talk about pastors, lowercase p, shepherd in my home, pastor in my home, every Christian man called to be a pastor in some sense, but not in necessarily the proper sense. So too with missionaries. And one of the things that I want to say to some of my brothers is, I know it's shocking, but there are lost people in Texas. Perhaps we're not aware of that, but I still get to do evangelism here. There's probably, it's shocking, but there's probably a few non-Christians in Idaho, maybe even in Moscow.
Yep.
You know, like there's anybody who's qualified to be a missionary proper in a very hostile place. And
it's not hostile. All these places that he's listing, Texas and all that, they're not hostile to Christians. What the hell are you talking about? They are positive about Christians. All of these places. In fact, they're positive about everybody. At worst, they're indifferent. Like, you can just go about your business and do your thing. They're just not affirming you. That's what he's complaining about right now. They're not affirming him. What the hell?
Never thought about any terrain in the United States through that lens, but I think we're going to have to progressively begin to think in that way, that the average Christian to live faithfully may not be cut out for Manhattan. That doesn't mean that Andy's not.
Right.
That doesn't mean that no.
What the hell are you talking about? Manhattan is a perfectly safe place for Christians. There are a ton of Christians here. Why does he think that Manhattan isn't cut out for Christians?
No one is, but I don't think that the average Christian, 16 million professing Christians in California, should be thinking, well, hey, every Christian's called to be a missionary. I don't know.
I'm going to follow up on that. First, I need to read this. The mission of Armored Republic.
Damn it, I shouldn't have done that. I wasn't even paying attention. I was listening to these poor fools instead of playing the game. I shouldn't have laid one down like that. That was a mistake. I'm going to restart this.
In California should be thinking, well, hey, every Christian's called to be a missionary.
I don't know. I'm going to follow up on that. First, I need to read this. The mission of Armored Republic is to honor Christ by equipping free men with tools of liberty necessary to preserve God-given rights. In the Armored Republic, there's no king but Christ. We are free craftsmen. Body armor is a tool of liberty. We create tools of liberty. Free men must remain ever vigilant against tyranny he's bestowed to us. Armored Republic is honored to offer you those tools.
Dude, are they advertising right now? Is that what's happening? They're advertising? Okay.
With body armor.
Yeah.
And you can visit them today at AR, the number 500, AR 500, armor.com.
Check out that.
Okay, now I know the website. I will make sure I never, ever visit that place. Jesus.
The A3, it's amazing.
Joel,
say it.
Yeah, okay, all right. Joel, so you probably get this question. I get it from time to time as a pastor. Someone will call or write me from a blue state. Right. Maybe, Washington State is right over the border here from where we are here in Moscow. Oregon's not too far away. California's not too far away. Sometimes elsewhere. And they reach out and they say, hey, how do I know? How do I know? They're conscientious Christian Christian man who cares about their family, is working there, is maybe even, is homeschooling or has got their kids in a faithful Christian school or something like this. And they consider whether they are called to stay or whether they're called to go.
Yeah. So one thing is I tell them to think in terms of 4 generations, the generation above being their parents. So as their parents age, are they in a position where they can give some return to their parents? For this is pleasing to the Lord. That's 1 Timothy 5. It is explicitly addressing.
Give some return to their parents for it's pleasing to the Lord. What the hell does that mean?
Widows. But I do believe that there's general equity there, that even if your father and mother are both still living, that it's great if we don't just ship our parents off to the glue factory. It's I think
they do what?
Wonderful God-honoring practice if we our parents into our home and we care for them and that they're surrounded by their children and grandchildren, perhaps even great-grandchildren as they die. So that's a generation above. The generation that you are, that would be your wife. At that level, I think of Titus, Proverbs 31. Industry was attached to the household in many different ways. This woman, she buys a field. She's making investments and turning a profit. Praise God.
Dude, what is he even going on about right now? He's just like rambling nonsensically.
But she's not necessarily going for 40 weeks out of the home working for another man. So even when she buys a field, she's making that decision. But what I always ask people is, whose mom did she field? Her husband's. And so she's her industry is connected to the home. So and duties,
I don't know why it's skipping around so much,
are so fruitful that it's overflowing, but it's still keep her at home, especially if you have young.
So women should stay at home always, no matter what. They should always be home, never out in the workforce or anything.
Children in that particular season of life. So a woman can work in some capacity, but it is ideal and pleasing to the Lord as much as you can to be able to survive off of a single income so mom can be with the kids. The kids, now we're a generation below. Fathers, this is Ephesians 6:4, do not exasperate your children, but train them up. And so I believe that way, but protect and provide. And one of the things that a father is called to provide is not just food and shelter and clothing, but also a distinctly Christian education. And so it is not.
This dude is so weird. He's like building things into the Bible that are not there, or that like he's basing it all off of an absolutely flimsy foundation at best.
Not permissible. I don't believe it is permissible, especially in this day and age. It's one thing back when the public schools used to be kind of the Protestant schools, but they're not, and they have.
Were public schools ever Protestant schools? I mean, I think that's a little bit of an overstatement, but okay. I noticed he said Protestant schools rather than Christian schools because America was never a Christian nation. It was always a, let me rephrase. America was never a Christian nation at any point. The Christians who were in any position of influence at all in the United States were always anti-Catholic, including the Founding Fathers. What? This guy is just so strange.
Haven't been for a long time, especially not in 2023, and especially not in a blue state. So I don't believe that it's permissible for a father to send his children to Caesar to be trained. I think that he's going to have to
give me a break, dude.
Give them a Christian education. He's going to outsource a lot of this in most circumstances in homeschooling with his wife or sending them to a Christian classical school. But in both cases, it means the wife has to be at home, so he can't rely on her for a second income, or he's going to have to pay tuition. He's going to have to pay even one below the children.
So is he saying that in an ideal world, public schools would just teach Christian ideology, or his ideology actually specifically, because he doesn't want people to have to like pay for tuition? Is that what he's saying right now? It sounds like it.
A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. That cannot be anything less than a spiritual inheritance, but I would eat my hat, if I ever wore one, if it's not something more. I think that the Lord has in mind nothing less than a spiritual, gospel-rich inheritance. But I also think the Lord's probably thinking about a little bit of cash. Now, that is a sliding scale, leaving it inherit than somebody who's a Christian evangelical in America. And so I'm not putting a number on that, but I do think that we should be thinking about the financial well-being of our grandchildren. I think that's kind of the heart principle in that verse. So my question would be this to anybody who emails me from a blue state is, are you doing that? Is your wife working 40 hours a week out of the home? Are you actively thinking we should have less children? We should have less children. We should have by renting.
So is he saying we should always have more children no matter what, I guess?
Are you working towards and thinking about the financial planning of your grandchildren? Your father and mother, are you geographically and economically positioned to give some return to your parents when that day comes and when they need it? And then lastly, I do believe in the tithe. I believe that that's still a New Testament principle. Are you a part of a solid biblical local church and giving 10% of your income? Are you
giving me your money?
All that. If you are, and you have a solid church in the community, and you're not having to compromise on any of these clear commands, and you feel a call of God to stay and fight in the thick of it, in the fray, praise God. God bless you.
God, I love it. So if you have a ton of money and you are, and you live in a blue state and you are like financially capable of like, not depending on anything or anybody at all, then you should stay in the blue state. But if you're destitute, then move. Are you serious with this right now? He really does not understand complete destitution, does he? Like, at all? He has no idea what it's like to have, like, not a penny to your name. He's probably always been a pastor and always lived in, like, the church housing or something. I'm guessing.
The problem, though, is when people, and I know kids are in public school, wife works out of the home, not even a thought about mom and dad coming to live with them as they age, no financial planning for the children's children. They're not tithing to the church. They're giving 2%, but they're giving Caesar his full due. At that point, I just want to say, okay, what did the state taxes go to? Is abortion on the books?
Oh, my God. Abortion has always been forbidden. Let me rephrase. Tax dollars have always been forbidden from going to abortion. There's never been a point since Roe v. Wade that abortion has gone toward. You know what? I'm sorry. Let me just double check that. What was the law? Not the Hatch Act. It was the from going to. The Hyde Amendment, that's what it is. Since 1977, the Hyde Amendment has banned the use of any federal funds for abortion, only allowing exceptions to pay for terminating pregnancies that endanger the life of the pregnant person or that result from taking advantage of somebody. Trying to find a monetized friendly way to say this. So, since 1977... at least federal funds have never done that. I don't know about state funds. Probably not, I would guess. I guess it depends on his state, right?
Are you funding that? It's going to be hard. It's going to hurt, but let's take an honest look. Here's your fighting resume for last year. Here's your funding resume. Are you out funding your fighting? And be honest. It may hurt.
Are you out funding your fighting? What does that mean? I don't understand.
But can we have that conversation without it being a doctrine of demons? And if the answer is yes, I'm funding more than fighting. Okay, see if you can repent there.
Yeah.
See if you can repent.
Yeah.
If you can't, though, leave. Not everyone.
Your Christian obedience in caring for your parents, in loving your wife well, and providing and protecting your children, and then thinking of your grandchildren, that obedience is central to the fight.
That's right.
That is the fight.
That is the fight. That is the fight. I mean, this is, and it's hard to get our heads and hearts around this, but this is God's blueprint for dominion. His blueprint for dominion is the family.
Dominionism is this idea that Christian nationalists should take over certain subsets of society. It's absolutely insane.
Faithful marriages, faithful generations, up and down. And that is the fight. And so your point is, if you're fighting, great, then stay and fight. If you're all in and you're making a dent, then great. But if you're not actually fighting, then don't call what you're doing fighting when it's actually funding the enemies. And I think you're absolutely right. Start by trying.
Dude, these people are just lost. Holy shit, man. This is nuts. How did they get here in their heads? So they're arguing that you should move to another state and kind of co-opt this area, just control this vicinity. That is nuts. What is wrong with them? Anyway, tell me what you think about this in the comments. These people are just lost. And by the way, I'll be talking about more of this stuff on my Owen Morgan Unfiltered channel, Wednesday and Thursday mornings, 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. if you want to see more of that. It's a pretty good time. Basically what we're doing here. So what did you guys think of the new arrangement of the, the videos? Is this better? You think? Should I go back to the old way, or? I'm hoping that this resolves a lot of the complaints. Like it better? Okay, good. Good. Thanks for coming, Naricol. I will see you tomorrow. Absolutely. I like this arrangement. Okay, good. People like the new format. It's much better. That's good news. All right. All right, guys. Well, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Hopefully, if not, I'll talk to you next week. Okay. All right, have a good night. Have a good night, everybody.